Hi there, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. Today I'm going to be scrapbooking this diptic photo of 4 different shots of my kids after their drama camp performances. And as usual, I'm going to start this process by going through the papers that come in the Scraptastic Wednesday Night kit. That's the Scraptastic kit for the month of August. I have the main kit and the add-on here, and I'm just looking through the papers for any colors that I think are going to go along with the photo that I'm using and help me tell the story that I want to tell here. So this kit has lots of really beautiful colors in it. I'm pulling out some pieces of paper that have some pinks and yellows and blues in them, and I'm just kind of putting them all in a pile, as you see, and I'm just kind of putting them in a pile so that I can see little slivers of them, so that I can keep in mind what colors I've already selected, so that I can keep on picking papers that coordinate with the papers that I've already picked. And that's how I do it when I'm shopping my stash as well. If I'm making a stash layout, I just kind of go through and I start with a paper that I like. In this case, it's this multicolored chevron by Crepe Paper. That was my starting point. And then I just keep on pulling in papers that have colors that are either in that paper or that I think coordinate. Now, originally I was going to use the other side of this. I really like the pattern on the other side of this Scraptastic paper, but I really love the idea of using ledger paper for my backgrounds, and it had a really nice soft color, and I like those pieces of printed washi tape up at the top. Usually I don't like that, but I really like it in this case. So at the last minute I noticed that the pattern on the back of the chevron was also quite nice, the yellow starburst. So I just flipped it over, my scrap piece, I flipped it over and used it as another layer. So I have two pieces of that crepe paper, and one of them is the chevron side and one of them is the yellow starburst side. I'm going to cut 2 strips of this scallop paper, also from the Scraptastic Club, and I'm going to use it as a strip along the top and a strip along the bottom. I'm sorry for my voice. I don't know if I'm coming down with a cold or what. It's not, my voice doesn't sound normal, so sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, so then the little colored, see how this scallop has different colors amongst the pink, and they weren't falling exactly where I wanted them to fall on the bottom strip, so I just cut another piece. I just didn't want to set off the balance. That other strip had both pieces down, both of the interesting scallops down in the bottom left-hand corner, and I didn't want, that was kind of setting off the balance because I have something up in the top left-hand corner. So I just wanted something less left dominant for the bottom strip. So this is my overall layout right here. What you see here is basically what the layout is going to end up being. I'm just going to add a title and some embellishments, and that will be it. But that's really the funnest part. So I like getting this part over with, the part where I just kind of decide on the structure of my layout, and then I can just have fun embellishing and deciding where my title goes and figuring out my journaling and that sort of thing. So here I'm just running my gray. It's an American Crafts pen. It's from the Chamel collection, and it's my favorite gray journaling pen, so I'm just using that. And I decided to use gray instead of black for my outlining for this project because I do outline on almost all my projects, not every single one, but the gray gives it a much lighter look than the black. So the black outlining gives a bolder look, and because the papers here are quite a bit lighter, I just wanted to emphasize the lightness of this layout, and I went with a lighter color. This pen is really, it works so smoothly. It's very easy to work with. So I'm just taking my time, and you'll notice as I outline, I keep my wrist straight. So I'm outlining with my entire arm, and I tend to be fairly quick with it because if I go too slow, my lines end up being too wobbly and messy looking. So just some tips there would be to move your entire arm. Don't move just your wrist, and to go quickly, to make quick strokes so that it stays relatively straight. It doesn't have to be perfect though. It actually looks better when it's not perfect. So there, I've reassembled it all into the, and I'm being a little bit fussy here about how I want these layers to show. It doesn't really matter, but I like how those three bottom left-hand corners look quite nicely spaced there. I kind of like that. It's a little bit more symmetric than I usually go for, but I think it looks nice like that. And the way I have the camera zoomed in, you can't see the top corners, but that's what I do pay attention to when I'm layering papers is all four corners of all of the papers that I'm using. I just want them to be staggered or completely covered. I don't want them too close together so that it looks like the layering was like if they're too close together, then it's a little bit too distracting. All the corners end up taking away from the overall look of the layout. So if you make your corners so that they're spaced out nicely, then it doesn't detract so much from the overall shape. So here's the part where I just start pulling out some embellishments and figuring out whether they go along with my story and the colors and shapes that I already have on the layout and where I might put them. So this kit comes with a lot of embellishments. It has this sheet of chipboard stickers that I just put aside. It has a couple of different letter options, including these die cut letters in a really beautiful blue foam. I'm going to end up using those for part of my title. So I'm just going through them and picking out letters that spell out the word queen. And so I just dumped them up on the top of my work project area so that I could spread them out and find the letters that I'm looking for. I didn't know if I had the proper the proper N there. There's another N, but I think that N isn't, I don't know. I think that one wasn't cut properly or something. I see the N's and the U's seem to be exactly the same letter, and that might very well be the case. I just wanted to look through and make sure that there wasn't a nicer N in there that I could use, and there wasn't, so I just went with that N. And I thought about using that whole sheet of Scraptastic cut aparts as a layer, but I decided not to because I like the emoticons over and icons and stuff over on the side, but it's a little bit too distracting for my purposes today. So these stickers the font is called Lullaby, and they're a really cute cursive font. I really like them. I've used them before in different applications. So this set came with the Wednesday Night kit, and it's called a foil letter sticker, and it has like an iridescent shimmery pattern. It's like a white pattern on a white chipboard sticker, and I didn't want to use white lettering, so what I did was I'm going to pull out my Copic marker. So I just have my Copic marker chart there that shows the colors that I have because I don't have the whole collection. And I picked out a really bright pink. And now my marker is going to do something a little crazy here. I think my marker is overfilled. I didn't refill it myself. I bought it already filled, obviously. And it's really leaking quite a lot. So you'll see me taking a Kleenex to it every once in a while. That's just me getting rid of some of the extra ink that's literally pouring out of the marker. But that's okay. It didn't cause me any problems thanks to my wax paper that I'm using here. And so that just allows me to customize the color of these letters so that they will stand out a little bit more on the background and coordinate with some of the colors that are already in the kit. I like that the letters that I'm using here are a fair bit more vibrant than the other colors that are on the layout. So they're similar colors, but they're a darker shade or a more vibrant shade. Maybe not darker, but just brighter. So using the wax paper allows me to experiment with where I want the title to go, and I very quickly decided that I wanted it up in that corner, and it'll be anchored by the printed washi tape that is on this background paper, and the background paper is by Scraptastic. Oh, and then that blue paper, I didn't say who makes that. That's a Simple Stories paper. And so now I am just placing these, and the ledger paper makes it really easy to place them straight. And I forgot to glue this down, so I'm just taking some Tombow mono adhesive and I'm going to put that strip across the top like that and just attach it down. And now these foam glitter letter stickers that come in the kit, they have adhesive on the back of them, so you just have to remove the backing and they stick down quite nicely. And the chipboard letter stickers, which are thickers, they are famous for not sticking very well, especially the chipboard ones. So my word drama is moving around a little bit as I place the word Queens. Queens is going to stay fine, but I'm going to run the whole thing through my sewing machine in just a second here. So that's why I'm moving everything over, and I'm going to take the layout at this point, my background paper. I'm just taking it over to my sewing machine, and I'm sorry that you're not going to see that part. Sometimes I show the sewing and sometimes I don't. I actually really like to show the entire process. I would rather show the sewing than not show it, but in this case, my scrap room is temporarily changed around so that it's difficult for me to videotape my sewing. I like to keep the entire process in just so that you see the process. I know that that makes my videos longer. Some people don't like that and some people do, but I just prefer to show the whole thing because that's what I like to watch when I'm watching videos, and it's the way that I like to just make my videos. And making videos is part of this hobby for me. I do enjoy making the process videos. It kind of allows me to enjoy the process of scrapbooking all over again as I watch it and narrate it like I'm doing right now. So my friend Stephanie was over while I was scrapbooking this layout, so that's why there were a little bit of gestures going on there. We were having a bit of a conversation. So now I've put all of my embellishments back. I'm not entirely sure where they're all going to go, but I'm just putting them there for now. And then the kit also came with this set of Heidi Swap. I don't know what these are called. They're wood veneer little squares. And I think you could use them in pocket scrapbooking if you wanted to. I'm just experimenting with different options for the center of that camera. And I'm actually thinking about having my embellishments be less layered than usual on this layout. So I'm thinking about actually placing these resin and wood veneer pieces right where they're at right now, and then just doing a tiny bit of layering on some of the pieces themselves. Instead of layering them with each other, I'm layering them as individual elements, but the elements together will not be touching. So usually I like my embellishments to touch and overlap a lot. And in this case, they're just going to be, I guess, floating on the layout instead of being anchored or touching or overlapping, which is another way that I sometimes do it. So I'm just taking one of those new brads by Simple Stories and a chipboard feather from the So Fancy collection from Simple Stories, and I'm just layering those on the wood veneer. I thought about painting the wood veneer. Oh, and I'm also sticking a little tiny enamel dot. I thought about doing two, but I stuck with one. I thought about painting that wood veneer, but I like the neutrality that plain wood veneers bring to a layout. I often don't paint them, even though it's very easy to paint or mist or ink them. I don't know, there's something about plain wood that I just really like. It appeals to me. It's a really nice neutral, especially when it's really light colored wood like this. When it's a darker colored wood, it's less of a neutral because it usually has an orange hue to it. So now I am finally committing to where I'm going to place this main cluster of layered papers in my photo. And now I'm going to use my Tombow Mono Multi, which is my favorite glue for gluing down bulky embellishments because it sticks really well. It sticks forever, and it's easy to use. The dispenser is really nice. And even though these embellishments are a little bit see-through, I can get away with using Tombow Mono Multi on it because it dries clear. And I think if you looked really, really hard, you might be able to see the glue. I'm looking at the layout right now and I can't see the glue at all on the camera embellishment or the ampersand. I can see it a little bit on the yay, but not too much. So I'm not too worried about it. The ease of using this liquid adhesive is worth it for me to risk sometimes seeing a little bit of it here and there. If I were using a really clear, like if it was absolutely transparent, I might choose a different glue. But even then, I probably wouldn't because I just like this glue. I know that it sticks, so. So I forgot to trim one of those threads, so I was just doing that. So when I did my sewing, I sewed across the scallop and I sewed across the word drama. I sewed the scallop on the top and on the bottom. And now this layout is actually called Drama Queens Not Really. And so I'm just putting Not Really down here. Underneath the word Drama Queens. And then I was really wishing that those letter stickers, they are from Jelly Bean Soup and they're really sweet. I love them. They have like a lined background on them. And it doesn't have any parentheses. It does have little smiley faces, so it has like a colon and a parentheses beside each other. But I was really looking for parentheses to put Not Really in brackets. So I'm going to make my own brackets in a few minutes here. You'll see me do that. So it says Drama Queens Not Really. And when I do the journaling, I'll explain why, because my kids are not actually drama queens, but this layout was about them at their drama camp. And here I'm going to make my parentheses. So I'm sacrificing one of those die cuts pieces of vellum that come in the kit. So I'm going to start by making a shape that's sort of like the outline of a parenthesis until I can get it the right size. I want them to both be about the same shape. So I've folded my die cut in half and I keep shaving off more and more off the end of it because I want it to be the right size, but I'm afraid that I'm going to cut too much off of it. And I really, really want to use this piece of vellum, and the other die cuts are different colors, so I don't want to ruin this one. So I keep taking a little bit more and a little bit more and checking it, and a little bit more and checking it. So now it's the right size, so I'm going to just scoop out the inside of that parenthesis, and that makes these little kind of makeshift brackets to put my not really, to put around my not really phrase of my title. And now I was looking for a glue pen. I have a couple of different glue pens that I use, and I found this Zig one. And I'm just glue pens are awesome because you can really control the glue and put the tiniest little bit on, and that's perfect for this kind of a application. So now I'm going to go ahead and put some Tombow Mono Multi on my Yay embellishment. I'm not sure why I didn't do it before. And I'm going to put a little bit more on it just because it has to go over a couple of different layers of paper, and I just wanted to make sure that it stuck. I don't think I've glued down the word dream yet either, and that's because I couldn't decide whether I was going to mist it or leave it plain. So I almost did my journaling in this black pen, and then I'm going to decide not to. And I'm switching to that gray Chamel pen, which I love so much. And I was going to journal just kind of off the top of my head on this layout. And then I realized, especially when I have somebody visiting me and I'm sort of carrying on a conversation and scrapbooking at the same time, I realized that that was probably not the smartest thing to do. So I decided to do my journaling on this little piece of scrap paper that I had off to the side. And I will read my journaling for you. And this also, it's always a good idea to actually do your journaling if you're doing a fair amount of it on a separate piece of paper so you can get a sense of how big it's going to be and how much space and how many lines you're going to need. But this is what it says. They may love drama camp at Unicorn Theatre, but my girls are not very dramatic in their everyday life. This year, Liv played Friedrich in The Sound of Music, and Sophie was Loopy in Clowns. Here they are after the show, so excited they couldn't give me a decent pose. And I seriously, like after the show, we went up on the stage and it was really nicely lit. So I thought this is a great place to get our pictures taken. And the two of them were completely goofing off. Like I could not get them to, if one of them had a nice face, the other one had a crazy face. And I took, I just had my iPhone, so I just snap a whole bunch of shots. And finally, I was just like, forget it, guys, just leave. So they went off to their cast party, and I just thought I'll either not get a photo or I'll do something like this. I imagined myself doing a layout that just shows all of their crazy faces. And it's just they were so excited. They just couldn't keep themselves together long enough to get a photo. And I love the shots. They're just being so silly. They're like, okay, take my picture. And even when they were trying to be serious, they were being silly. So I just took a moment to journal that with my gray pen, and now I'm sticking down the word dream. I decided not to mist it. I often mist those die cuts just to add a bit of color, but there's already enough color going on. I'm trying to balance interest in color with making sure that it's not too busy. So I want it to be interesting enough, but not so overwhelming with colors and shapes and embellishments and stuff. And that's always a challenge for me, figuring out when is enough. When is enough? So see, I wanted to use this dream catcher. I love this dream catcher. And my first impulse was to layer it over amongst the pattern paper. But then I remembered, wait a minute, I'm not really layering things on this layout. That cluster of pieces down on the bottom left-hand corner is sort of every layout, every embellishment is set aside from the other one and they're not overlapping. So I decided to put that dream catcher, just float it right up there under the title. And I really like how it looks. It's not something I would normally do, but I like how it looks there. And I keep coming back to this love. And so because I keep coming back to it, I feel like I just need to use it. So that's where I'm going to put it. And I'm going to fuss around with whether or not it's going to stay or go a little bit. And so it's staying, and then I'm going to take it away, and then I'm going to put it back. And I don't know if I'll show all of this because I guess it's part of my process, so I'll leave it in. And I thought about using this arrow, this chipboard arrow. I love chipboard pieces. They add, a bit of depth to your project. And so I love to use them whenever I can, but I didn't feel like that one was going to add very much to this layout. So I didn't end up going with it. I'm taking it away and putting it back and moving it around. And finally, I'm just going to decide to leave it there. And I do like how it looks. And now I'm going to take some foam adhesive. These are Stampin' Up! Foam. They're quite thin. And somebody asked me, when do I use foam adhesive and how do I decide when to use it and when not to use it in my layers? And basically on a layout like this where there's not a whole lot of layering in between my layers, I definitely, well, actually, even if there is a lot of layering, I usually like to put some foam adhesive in between my layers just to add a little bit of lift, and it gives a bit of shadow on the layers below it, and it just adds a teeny bit of interest. I don't like to do it on every single one of my layers, so I think what I might do is do a separate video that just talks about when I use pop dots and how I do my layers. I do have a tutorial type of a video that talks about using pop dots in quite a bit more detail. So maybe I'll take a look and see if I can figure out which video that was and link it. And if I can't find it, I'll just make a new video about that. So I decided to do some misting, and I'm covering up quite a few things here. And then I just decided to take the dream catcher off. It would be too hard to mask that. And I don't want to get ink on top of the dream catcher. I just really like it a lot. And I also didn't want to get anything on the wood veneer. So I just masked those things off. I started with white mist, and then I was going to add some color. But again, I've talked before in this layout about how I'm trying to be really careful to not overdo it with the color on this one, because there are a lot of colors and I think it would be easy to go overboard. So I decided to go with silver and white mist instead of adding more color to the background. So I just took a baby wipe and cleaned off some of the pieces of the drips of mist that went on top of my letters. And I actually left some mist on one of the letters. I think you'll see it in the photos at the end. I just really liked the interest that it added, so I just left it there. Yeah, I added the dream catcher and then I added a few more drips. So you see that there's some you'll see that there's some drips on the R for drama. It's just some of the silver landed there, and I love how that looks, so I just left it. And there you see my journaling, and using the ledger paper to space out my journaling really, really helps. I love using ledger paper as backgrounds. I think it looks really cool, and it really makes it easy to make sure that everything is lined up if you like things to be lined up, and it's great for journaling on. So these are just the video close-up of what this layout looks like in person, and then you'll see some photos at the end. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I don't think that there's much else to say about this that didn't come up in the process. So again, thanks for watching. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.